In the early morning hours, around 1:40 this morning, deputy sheriffs, 3 deputies, as well as a Precinct 4 deputy constable responded to a call for service in Sienna Plantation subdivision where there was a suspicious person. Caller stated that they appeared this suspicious person jumped into a backyard. Moments later, a light turns on, and so deputies responded to that property to conduct a property check. They noticed that there was a back door that was unsecure, and they entered the residence in an attempt to clear that residence. Shortly thereafter, a deputy sheriff with the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office discharged his firearm, believing there was an intruder inside the residence. And obviously, he discovered that he shot the deputy constable of Precinct 4. First aid was rendered immediately. Units arrived, EMS arrived. The deputy was flown to Memorial Hermann downtown, where he passed away. A tragedy. No sheriff, no constable, no chief of police, no one in this entire country in the field of law enforcement ever want to hold press conferences like this. An absolute tragedy. And Constable Nehls is here to share about Deputy Rule and his tenure, and a little bit more about Deputy Rule of the Precinct 4 Constable's Office in Fort Bend County.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning to each and every one of you. My name is Trevor Nehls, and I'm the Precinct 4 Constable, Fort Bend County, Texas. To my left is Chief Deputy John Herman and Sergeant Christina Resendez. What I would like to do with you this morning is to give you some insight on exactly who Deputy Caleb Rule was and the fine man he was. So a little background. He had close to 15 years of law enforcement experience. 14 of those years he spent with the Missouri City Police Department, where he served as a detective from 2011 to 2018. He's married to Eden, and he has 4 children, ranges 13 to 18 years of age. In fact, his oldest daughter will graduate tonight. This is a somber day for the entire law enforcement community here in Fort Bend County. He was hired in September of last year by our office, and he was assigned to the Riverstone subdivision as a patrol deputy. He was extremely dedicated to the job as a law enforcement professional. He was a family man, devoted husband, devoted father, and he spoke often of his family and the love of his family. He was a mentor to the younger deputies, being an experienced, close to 15-year veteran, and his deputies enjoyed conversing with him and learning from him. He had an outgoing personality who loved engaging with the community. I would say, well, that was one of the key trademarks of Deputy Rule, his engagement and love for the community he served. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Why were there 2 agencies patrolling that residence? Why was it sheriff's and constable?
The Fort Bend Sheriff's Office patrolled the Sienna subdivision where the incident occurred. Deputy Rule is assigned to the Riverstone subdivision as a deputy. And it's often where one agency will support another agency. As a deputy constable or deputy sheriff, we operate under the same radio system, here at the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Department. So it is common where sheriff's deputies and constable deputies will work together on calls for service.
You guys may not be able to answer this because it's part of the investigation, but just preliminarily, can you give light from a law enforcement standpoint on possibly what the procedure is or policy is on calls like that, in terms of engaging, I guess, with a potential intruder, or can you shed light kind of more on that portion of it so people can understand?
Well, in this specific incident, the deputies felt there was an intruder inside the home based upon the information that was received by the call taker at the Sheriff's Department. In a lot of cases, you're going to be very, very vigilant on how you enter a home. In this instance, there was an unsecured back door, which the deputies entered to clear the property. But it is common practice throughout law enforcement. There are ways to search a property specifically for an intruder or whatever type of alarm. So there are procedures that instruct deputies or officers how to do that.
So what did they do wrong then?
I'm not going to say anything was done wrong. I think what we have in this certain circumstance is a mistaken identity, a tragedy of mistaken identity. I have not spoken to the deputy in question. I'm confident that he will be interviewed while the investigation is ongoing, but I'm not going to speculate what I think the deputy felt at that time or what he was feeling as the home was being searched.
Were sheriff's deputies not aware that there was another agency?
They arrived around the same time. So when the sheriff's deputies arrived, the constable deputy arrived at the same time, or within 30 to 45 seconds.
Was there a verbal exchange before the gunfire?
Not sure. Not sure at this time whether there was any verbal exchange, but the investigation is ongoing.
As it relates to the questioning whether, what went wrong, we immediately notified the Texas Rangers here in Fort Bend County. There were 3 Texas Rangers on the scene, and so there's a joint investigation being conducted. Our office is conducting an investigation. The Texas Rangers are there to conduct their investigation. The Fort Bend County District Attorney's Office is there to conduct an investigation to make sure that we get this right. We want to, put all the pieces of the puzzle together, and that's what's being done today. I really don't have any more information, or we don't have more information to share with you as to who did what at what time. That investigation is taking place right now, and at some point in time we should have those answers. We just don't have them today.
Is there any more you can share about the suspect that you guys were looking for, that the identity?
No, there's a video camera across the street showing a gentleman running down the street, and that's why they called. It appeared that this gentleman was running towards that house. The neighbors knew that that house was vacant at the time. And then all of a sudden a light appeared inside that house. So think about that.
I guess the Ivory's point was, and I guess, I don't know if it varies from agency to agency in terms of, is there supposed to be some kind of verbal commands, or to see if the person's armed, or what would that look like?
I have not spoken to the deputies. The investigation is ongoing. The Texas Rangers, the District Attorney's Office, our detectives, they are talking to the deputies that were at the scene, on the scene, getting statements, trying to gather information so we can piece this together and determine what happened. How did this tragedy take place? Because, as the constable said, this is a tragedy. This is an absolute tragedy. And we have to pray for all the families involved.
Other than the officer that was shot and the other one that shot him accidentally, how many other officers were there?
There were a total of 4. 3 sheriff's deputies and the deputy constable.
But the only one that was inside the house was him at the time, right?
Again, I don't know. We're still piecing all this together. As far as, again, questions related to the investigation, we don't have any answers to you right now. I don't have any answers, but we're going to get the answers. We have 3 separate agencies investigating this, as I stated a second ago, the Sheriff's Office, the Texas Rangers, and the District Attorney's Office. And I'm sure that they will conduct a very, very thorough investigation to find out exactly what happened.
Have you had this type of incident happen before?
I've been the sheriff here for 8 years. I've been doing this for almost 30, and I think Constable Nehls has been doing this for 30. This is the first time here at the Sheriff's Office we've ever had an incident like this take place where a peace officer shot another fellow peace officer. No.
Forgive me if this is the obvious question. You have interoperability. I mean, you guys share radio channels, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we do.
Constable, can you share more, obviously, if you've spoken with the family in terms of, maybe a little bit more about Deputy Constable Rule? Of course, the family is devastated and heartbroken. Can you share anything that they, I guess, may have expressed this morning or may want us to know about him?
Well, what I'd like to do now is have Sergeant Resendez speak to you a little bit about Deputy Rule, as she was his first-line supervisor.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Deputy Rule, he was known as a family man, a loving father and husband. Caleb was a well-liked, dedicated law enforcement officer. He was a mentor and a friend to many. It's a great loss, and he'll be greatly missed. I did get to engage a little bit with his wife today. We weren't really able to speak on what you're speaking on right now, but that's all I have.
Can you make sure you have the proper spelling of your last name, ma'am?
Resendez.
Well, as you know, with any incident like this, the family's going to be heartbroken, as is the wife and the children, his father, his mother. They all were engaged with us this morning. Several of them traveled to Herman Memorial to be there for his wife.
Is he originally from this area, or is he from out of town, or?
That's a good question that I can't answer, where historically he grew up.
How old was he?
37 years of age.
I know you guys have to do more investigating on how exactly it happened, like what happened in the house. But I guess as departments, not just the 2, but everywhere, I guess, what can be learned from what happened and I guess the procedures that go into, I guess, encountering somebody?
Once we gather more facts on exactly what occurred, there are opportunities for increase of training opportunities probably first and foremost, based upon this circumstance.
Can you at least speak in generalities? What is the procedure when you have 2 different agencies responding to the same scene? Typically, what would be the procedure?
Well, understand that Fort Bend County constables and Fort Bend County sheriffs, we're all county employees. The only difference you see with a Fort Bend sheriff vehicle and a Fort Bend constable vehicle is the striping. Everything on the inside is exactly the same. So that relationship exists, and oftentimes they work together in calls for service, specifically calls involving a potential intruder at 2 in the morning. So there is a relationship there.
So but are you all listening to the exact same radio traffic at all times?
Based upon what area of the county you are working, that's correct.
So theoretically, the 3 deputies and your constable should have been hearing one another if they were talking on the radio.
While they're in their vehicle, they're listening to the same radio traffic from dispatch, correct?
Okay, but what about if they're talking to one another?
They're all in the same radio channel
So
with the
if
portable.
they're talking to each other, theoretically, your deputy constable would hear that on his portable radio as well.
Absolutely.
And so obviously that's still part of the investigation of what exactly that.
Correct.
Sheriff, I know you say you haven't talked to him, but was there any initial statements as to why your deputy feared for his life, what it was that you feared for his life?
It is too premature for me to, investigators, again, with the different agencies, will be talking to all the deputies involved in this in this tragedy and getting their statements to figure out exactly what happened. And I just tell you, when you think about law enforcement and you think about serving in law enforcement in the communities of Fort Bend County, I mean, this serving at nighttime, this can be a very, very dangerous job, and lives are at risk. And this here is something that no law enforcement officer in this country ever wants to have to deal with something like this. This is an absolute tragedy. We have a CISM team right now, Critical Incident Stress Management team, talking with the deputies that were there, talking with the responding officers that went to the scene, that were initially involved, but traveled to the scene when they heard that there was an officer down. So right now it's just communicating with everybody involved, talking to them. But this investigation is going to take some time, and we want to get it right. We want to know exactly what happened, how it happened, what was said, who it was said to, what did their radios, all of it. And unfortunately, we don't have the answers for you right now. What we want to do right now, I believe, is just share with you about Caleb and about who he was as a man and a tragedy.
And I know that you mentioned, and we know that this was a tragedy, and you've repeated that frequently, but can we know how many years of experience of service did the person that shot the officer have?
He has over 20 years.
Over 20 years.
Unless you have any further questions.
Body cameras on the scene?
Yes, Deputy Rule did have a body camera.
In your deputy though?
No, sir.
No?
Is there anything y'all want to share about the flag to our right here?
Yes, Chief Deputy Herman is carrying the flag that draped the body of Deputy Rule. And Mrs. Rule asked for the flag. So immediately upon conclusion of this conference, that's exactly what I intend to do. I'm going to travel to the Rule residence and present her the flag.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.